What are contingencies in real estate? Well, ultimately, they're what protect you from making costly decisions. And I'm going to show you how to use them so that you don't make any costly decisions. You make just good ones. You ready? Let's go. All right, so when you're working on the computer, the undo button can be an invaluable tool. So can a contingency clause when you're looking to buy or sell real estate. From a buyer's perspective, you could look at it as your escape hatch or your get out of jail free card. And there are provisions like these for sellers too. And by the time we're done here, you'll know the 6 most common contingencies that you're going to encounter in real estate and what happens if they're not met. And then I'm going to give you the same epic due diligence checklist that I give to my private clients so that they don't make bad decisions and they don't make bad purchases. So you can make good purchases yourself too. And I give it to you because life is too short to make bad real estate deals. And if you've got something that's going to help somebody else, it's just not cool to keep it to yourself. So it's my free gift to you, and I'm going to give you the link in a minute. All right, so a contingency clause is a conditional clause. If this happens, then this can happen. Or if this doesn't happen, then this can happen. And contingency clauses are used to provide a way for one or both parties, the buyer or the seller, to back out of a real estate contract if certain specified conditions are not met. They are clauses in a purchase agreement specifying an action or requirement that must be met for the contract to become legally binding. And both the buyer and seller must agree to the terms of each contingency and sign the contract before it does become binding. It's like this. They are safeguards for buyers and sellers that give them the right to cancel a contract if the terms aren't met. And there are many types of contingency clauses that can be added to a real estate contract. And I'm going to cover the 6 most common ones. The first one is the mortgage contingency. This clause, it specifies a window of time in which the buyer must obtain financing to purchase the property. If the buyer doesn't secure a loan by that deadline, they can withdraw from the deal without penalty and the seller can put their property back on the market and look for a different buyer. Number 2, the title contingency. Now this provides the buyer the right to obtain a title search and raise any objections to the status of the title to the property, which must be cleared by the seller in order for the buyer to close on the transfer of title. Number 3, the home inspection contingency. So this clause, it involves a window of time that the buyer has to get the property professionally inspected. The home inspection, it helps ensure that there are no serious issues, such as, say, a leaky roof that you didn't know about, or a faulty electrical system, or structural defects. Because if it turns out that the property has defects, and the seller elects not to repair or remediate the issues which are raised by the buyer can terminate the contract without penalty. Number 4, the sale contingency. So this protects buyers who need the cash proceeds from the sale from an existing property or another property to be able to afford this new one. Most commonly it works like this. If a buyer needs to sell their current home first by the deadline indicated in the contract in order to fund the new purchase, but they can't find a buyer for their existing home, they can cancel the real estate contract without penalty. Number 5, the appraisal contingency. So this contingency, it safeguards the buyer by stipulating that the property must appraise for the indicated sales price at minimum or the contract can be nullified. This is because banks don't like to loan money to borrowers for a house that costs more than it's worth. This clause, it may also indicate that the seller can opt to reduce the price to the appraised value in order to progress the sale forward. And number 6, homeowners insurance contingency. Now this clause, it stipulates that the buyer must apply for and obtain homeowners insurance on the property. If they can't get the necessary insurance, either party can withdraw from the contract. This is often requested by either the seller or the mortgage lender. Now let's look at what happens if a contingency isn't met. What are the actions, the following actions? And then we'll look at where you can download a free copy of the Epic Due Diligence Checklist. But first, if you like making money in real estate, let me know by hitting the like button. And if you take your real estate investing seriously, subscribe to the channel because I post money making and money saving strategies and tips each and every week right here. Now, when a contingency condition isn't met, either party may consider the contract null and void. And this allows either party to cancel the deal and pursue other prospects or other opportunities. For example, when a property under contract doesn't appraise for its expected value, the financing for the purchase is put at risk of cancellation. So here, the buyer or seller can either choose to cancel the contract, appeal the appraisal, or mutually renegotiate the purchase price to accommodate for the lower appraised value. So either or both parties can suggest compromises and reopen negotiations in the hopes of keeping the deal from falling through. Or they can just cancel and pursue other opportunities if they think they can do better elsewhere. And if that's the case, what happens to the earnest money a buyer has deposited with the closing agent? Because this is important. The contingencies are typically tied directly to the earnest money or the good faith deposit. This is what a buyer often gives when going under contract on a property. And if a contingency isn't met, the buyer usually gets that deposit back. The earnest money is held in escrow by a third party. It's kind of like a referee, so to speak. And if the buyer defaults on the terms of the real estate contract, if they default, the seller gets to keep the earnest money. But if the buyer puts certain contingencies in the contract that allows them to terminate the contract legally, the buyer can have their earnest money refunded to them. In this way, contingencies serve as an emergency escape hatch for buyers. And with that said though, it is important to understand that both parties will be required to sign a release of that earnest money, should it come to that. And if a seller drags their feet or is perhaps maybe a little disgruntled because the buyer canceled and resists signing the release in a timely manner, it could take a while before the buyer receives their earnest money, even though they are legally entitled to it. Now, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Now, buyers, you should always include a financing contingency in your purchase agreement. Because with this in place, if your mortgage is denied for any reason, including a low appraisal, you have the right to get your earnest money deposit back. Now, it's good advice to have your homeowner's insurance contingency in there as well, even if your lender doesn't require it. And home buyers who need to sell their existing home first before buying a new one should also protect themselves with that sale contingency. Additionally, don't skimp on adding a title contingency. I mean, you want to make sure the property that you're buying isn't coming along with some unwanted baggage like liens or judgments against it and is being sold by the property's rightful owner. Without a clear title contingency, you could have issues in the future that make it challenging to resell your property. I mean, it's buyer beware out there, so be cautious, especially in a seller's market like the one that we're in right now currently as of the recording of this video. And here's why. Although these contingencies offer buyers valuable legal protection, if you clutter your contract with too many, sellers have the luxury of choosing a different buyer who may have less in their contract. The fewer the contingencies that you put in your offer to purchase, the more competitive your offer is, but the more risk that you take on as well. So it's a balancing act in a competitive market, and it will fluctuate with each offer that you make based on market conditions and that property. Sellers should also be careful not to negatively affect their bargaining position, which can happen if they choose to add too many contingencies to the contract, which could deter the best buyers. So if you'd like a copy of my epic due diligence checklist to make sure that you got all your contingencies in place to help you safely navigate your next purchase, you can grab it for free at epicduediligence.com. And if you'd like some personal one-on-one help taking your real estate investing to the next level, go to reiace.com, answer a few questions about yourself and your goals, and then you can just pick a time for us to hop on the phone and brainstorm some ideas about what it's going to take to get you there. Because I routinely find that most people are much closer than they think, and all that's needed is just the right direction and support to make it happen. And if that's your situation, wouldn't it make sense to at least look into it? Go to reiace.com and we'll take a look together. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.